outside of the people.
It must not be a capitalist system, because we don't want to exploit anybody. We don't want to be exploited, and we don't want to exploit anybody.
Ain't nobody gonna do it for us. There's nobody outside of yourself, nobody outside of ourselves that's going to do this work for us. We have to put in that real work.
Because the better you are at exploiting people, the more successful you are within capitalism.
We want to say salute to all our political prisoners, our POWs, our elder comrades in exile.
The satisfaction we need as a people only comes through liberation and independence.
Because we're not just building for self, we're building for the family, because the family is broken. We're building for the community is broken. The nation is broken. The race is under attack. We're in a state of emergency.
You're tuned in to the New African Broadcast Association, where we inform, educate, and elevate. Free the land. Naba.
Yeah, I don't hear no sound.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Comrade?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what's up, comrade. So yeah, for the people who let me start this all over. You're listening to the New African Broadcast Association, and this is the Voices of New Afrika. Y'all probably wondering what in the world going on, cause for the last couple of weeks, I've been here by myself, trying to hold it down, trying to do the best I can. And Comrade Atiba was like saying, Comrade, you got to get them brothers back in there because you're struggling, Comrade, you're struggling. I'm just playing. He ain't say that. But hey, I got my comrades back with me, and we're about to have a good old time. We had a lively discussion, a great conversation. Lately, we've been talking about a lot of things that have been going on in Africa. We've been talking about some more stuff that was going on with Norman Lear and this old award show. We're going to get into all of that. But first, I'm going to go out for a second. And I'm gonna, share this program with everybody to make sure we get everybody in. And I appreciate you doing that also, Comrade Atiba, because we want to get the word out. And everybody listen out there, check in and let us know. Let us know who's out there so we can properly converse with everybody. And if y'all could do me this one favor, just if everybody out there just tag in, one or two people that you think would benefit from this program. In other words, just write a comment and write their name in there. About two people who you would think would either be interested in this type of content or would benefit from this program, so we can grow our audience and we can continue to get the word out, and our family, our revolutionary freedom fighter family, can grow, because everybody in our audience are basically revolutionary nationalists, freedom fighters, people who are dedicated to the liberation of our people and the destruction of a system that has exploited and devastated the whole world. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So get the word out. Let's expand it. Let's increase our family. But comrades, how y'all been doing? Before we get into the discussion, I just want to see how y'all doing. Let the people know what we're doing. What is the New African Independence Movement? What's our goal and our objective? I'm gonna leave that question with y'all while I go try to find out and see what's going on with everything. And you got to unmute yourself, comrade.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me out there? The New African Independence Movement is, first of all, let's give them the background and the history of the New Africans. So, Grandmaster Teacher, can you give us a background of the New African Independence Movement?
Okay, so in 1968, in March 31st to April the 1st, Black nationalists came together in Detroit, and created Louisiana and South Carolina. And in North Carolina, uh, and went and had to flee the United States because he was
Hey,
navigating.
unmute, comrades. Uh, phone. His phone is mute.
Did they hear that?
There you go. You better know.
All right. So consequently, Robert Williams was elected in absentia of the first president, of the Republic of New Africa. When he finally came back to the United States, he was designated as president, but he was not active. Milton Henry, I don't know his African name, but his brother Richard Henry, which is Omari Obadele, also became, president, vice president of the Republic of New Africa. Like I said, Obadele was put in prison unjustly and spent at least, I think, 5 years in prison as a result of some kind of conflict that happened in Jackson, Mississippi that was instigated by the FBI and the police, Jackson police. And so there was a struggle to free Omari and others. And then eventually the 11 were set free, even though they had served time in jail unjustly. So consequently, this is where Omari Obadele from down in Louisiana and in Jackson, Mississippi, continued to be president. And Brother Chokwe Lumumba was also, he was in the beginnings of the Republic of New Africa when he became mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. So go ahead. And a lot of people from Detroit came down to Jackson, Mississippi, and settled in Mississippi, and they were advocating that Africans throughout the United States settle in the 5 states so that we can gain control of the territory.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's a little bit about the history of what we're doing. We got to turn it down some, comrade. Um, yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's a little bit about the history. But doing our radio portion of the program, we talked about a lot of different things, about the things that have been going on in Africa, and some other things. So we want to kind of revisit that. You start out with Somalia. Somalia is facing famine and a lot of problems going on right there. But really, the origins of the problem, if I heard you correctly, was military strikes, drone strikes by the United States government. If you can get into that just a little bit for us.
So, look at the history of Somalia, we see that Somalia, there was a revolution occurring in Somalia. And the United States decided they were going to help the so-called government forces stay in power. So they sent some helicopters. That's where General Adi, who was general of the army in Somalia, had the plane shot down. Ultimately, they assassinated him. And so Somalia became a battleground in which the United States tried to designate the rebel forces or the revolutionary forces as being Al Qaeda. And they're now even supporting a government that is a bankrupt government that was getting ready to be taken over by the so-called revolutionary forces. And so the United States has been shooting drones throughout Somalia since that time. That was in 1990. I think in 1991 or something like that. So anyway, this has created a famine in Somalia. In other words, the people are starving as a result of the policies, of the long-term policies of the United States and the puppet government that have been set up in Somalia. And, if we look at East Africa, we see some similar things like in Ethiopia, where the United States is a supporter of the Ethiopian government, and the Ethiopian government had used and United States planes and stuff to bomb Tigrian people and starve them in Ethiopia. So the point is that you have the United States military basically operating in East Africa and throughout North Africa and even in West Africa and Mali. And so people are suffering as a result of the policy set up by the United States empirical government. And Obama was also involved in that when some youth out of Somalia was trying to protest the oil companies coming through the Suez Canal and going across the bottom and interfering with the fishing operation of, because one of the food products that they had to deal with was fishing, and oil companies, the big tankers. So they seized some of the tankers, and from their little ship little boats that they had, and Obama, sent in drones to kill a couple of guys that was on the boats to end their taking over the tankers and stuff like that. So therefore, when we look at the policy of the United States, we understand that that is creating situations in the African continent in which our people are suffering and continue to suffer as a result. Now they have a famine of epic proportions in Somalia right now, because they have created warlike conditions throughout that area, and they've used Kenya and other places to send the drones out over Somalia to fight against the Somalian forces, because the foreign forces have been also in self-defense attacking the United States in Kenya and places like that because of the way that they've treated them in their own country. So these are the kind of things that we got to understand. And then the point I was raising was that we don't have a united African or new African control of any resources in the world wherever we are, and our wealth. How do we get in poverty in places like Somalia and places like Zimbabwe, and Uganda, where they just found $30 billion worth of gold in Uganda, places like that. And once we began to understand and look at the situation, see this is what the United States empire is all about: is to take over, to control and continue to control the resources, and even taking over from France and Britain, control over areas, that they formerly were in control of. Somalia was one of those countries. Yeah.
You
talked about a lot of things. Now, one thing about Somalia, um, you already said how the powers to be, the power structure was exploiting the oil from the country, which led to them having military strikes on the people of Somalia. But if I'm not mistaken, because like earlier when you was talking about the helicopter, they made a movie about that called Black Hawk Down, correct? Yeah. And like you said, they wanted vengeance from that. They've been public enemy number one ever since that event. Um, but if I'm not mistaken, Somalia is rich in uranium. That's one of the natural resources. And if you don't understand the importance of uranium, uranium is the key ingredient in order to make a nuclear bomb. So Somalia is extremely important. And one thing you understand about Africa, everywhere that you see conflict in Africa, great conflict, you also have a huge amount of natural resources. There are some people in Africa who still live the same way that they lived thousands of years ago, undisturbed. That's because the area in which they live don't have anything that white people want in particular. So they tend to leave them alone. So it's important that we understand that when we look at the conflict and a lot of things in Africa and the poverty, and the famine, this is not something indigenous to the continent. This is not indigenous to the people. This is something that has been put upon the people because of the exploitation of European and Western powers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo is a key example.
Mm-hmm.
Congo has more resources than any other country on the face. And it's 1/4 the size of the United States. It's the size of Western Europe, the whole of Western Europe, and yet it is rich in resources. I mean, any resource you want to name, but even the resources that we use out on our cell phones and all that is coming from the Congo. And the people are poor. They're rich. They've divided up the people. They got a war in the United States and the United Nations and Britain and France, all of them. Belgium, who was the original so-called mother country, who killed 12 million Africans in about a 15-year period under King Leopold. So how do we look at these situations where our people are being divided up and not receiving any part of the resources that come out of the Congo? And the same thing in what they call South Africa. Same thing in almost any area that you name in Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and Western Africa. You're going to find that the resources are still being controlled by the so-called former mother country. And then you have white settlers that still exist in Kenya, still exist in Zimbabwe, which used to be Southern Rhodesia, and still exist in South Africa. And the people are starving. The people are, and some people are raising up, but they've had people who basically went along with, what's going on. Even Nelson Mandela and Bishop Tutu, and people like that who basically have gone along with the continued presence of these white settlers and these settler colonies. And the United States is a settler colony. And that's what we got to understand too. That when we talk about the Republic of New Africa, in terms of that, we're in a settler. This is a settler colony that's taken over from the native people who exist and who enslaved us here. So there should be no regrets about us talking about we want to have a free and independent African nation.
Yeah, brother. Grandmaster teacher, as always, you make it interesting. It's not up. I don't know. Oh yeah. Can you hear me out there?
You probably good. You probably good.
It's so much valuable history that would lead us to the solution to our problems that it's a shame that we have to learn so much before we can actually see the forest from the trees. Because as you mentioned, that many of I gotta take this off. Many of the people that get involved with, as far as African people have been taken a lot of times by their exposure or relationship they built with Europeans. Europeans have always been the world's greediest people, and they seek and they search and destroy the world for to obtain and control resources. So we end up dealing with some people that are greedy. Like you mentioned, um, Brother Prophet, you mentioned that the uranium is in Somalia. Obviously, one of their tactics they've used for centuries is to create chaos um, in different countries and bring back order with them in total control. They've done that in so many different, we have so many different examples in the motherland that as a people, we should know that we have to do something differently. We do need to organize. Like Grandmaster Teacher Fadali says all the time, we need to organize. We do need to organize. But we also need to recognize um, what part or what role is played by our enemy to create these conditions for us, and then do the complete opposite to reverse those effects. Um, that's what our problem is now. Um, Even in the event when we think we've made some type of stride or gain, they've nullified that by controlling the end results. Like President Obama. We talked about President Obama in Somalia, but as soon as he um, supposedly became the notarized first black president, which that's under debate as well, um, he began to systematically uh, do some of the things that Europeans weren't able to do because it would be obvious. You would be seeing you couldn't get the opportunity to do it as easily as having a black president, like um, um, being able to kill Muammar Gaddafi, being able to do what they did in Somalia, uh, to change the conditions um, of Libya to a point where even if Muammar Gaddafi was killed, he had enough in place to keep things going. So they created chaos in Libya where now we can't get that idea concept um, rejuvenated back in amongst the people as a whole to start that process to have a united Africa, to change um, the African currency to one, to make a great impact in the worldwide economic system, um, just just by simply um, developing an African currency that's backed by the resources that they have there. Um, and when we do start going in that direction to change the condition to be better for our people worldwide, they assassinate our leaders. They bring in another leader as a puppet to create chaos and havoc. And then they come in and create this facade of order where they're in charge and in control of the resources. We're going to have to change that, man. We're going to have to be able to recognize that there are steps that we have to take. One of the steps is to become involved in the creation of the first black new African nation on the Western Hemisphere that will catapult us in the direction of being able to be successful Pan Africanly. If we do that here on the Western Hemisphere, all the puzzles of the pieces will fall together. We attempted it once with Haiti. They counterattacked, with created havoc mayhem and misfortune for Haiti, but we have a golden opportunity now as a second chance to develop that black nation in the Western Hemisphere, the Republic of New Africa. And as we talk and educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated, we must constantly reinforce that black people, if you don't do anything, look up the provisional government of the Republic of New Africa. Become involved in NABA Broadcasting Association. Be involved in supporting black businesses. But it's easier now for me to say that being involved in the New African Broadcasting Association would be the best way to begin to develop those inroads into our community and hear all of the good information that's out there about our people and what's going on so we can be involved. It's kind of difficult to find black businesses in some jurisdictions, like Memphis, like other areas in the United States, but you still do your best to try to help and assist. But as we have begun to develop lines of communication through the internet and so forth, let's begin to start doing our small portion of getting involved through these mediums that we can now control. But it seemed like you had something interesting to say when I said that we need to start beginning to assist in developing that nation here in the Western Hemisphere because they'll bring somebody in to create chaos and havoc, like they did with Obama. They brought him in, giving us the belief that we have a first black president, but all the time their agenda was to kill Gaddafi, um, eliminate the ascending powers of the African United Organization, United African Organization. He did do some work in destroying that momentum,
African Union.
the African Union, and he also did some damage with Somalia, among other things in Africa that first so-called black president uh, did. Um, we need to do more of soul searching when we come to dealing with these Europeans because they have always had the carrot that can make most of us um, become traitors to our people, our nation, and our race by having the resources to do that, the funds. Being in a capitalist system and not having money, you've built a repository of black people that you can go and give at the right price enough money to be traders against our people. What can we do to turn that around?
I think once we began to understand, the class situation, what these class, because they don't just get somebody off the street to
Right.
become a trader or whatever you want to call them. They put them in educational institutions and all these, so they'll be in place. It's just like even when we talk about today in terms of Haiti, they got people in Florida, that they've made to be president of Haiti. I think one just got assassinated a few months ago.
Right.
Well, so what I'm saying is, that's a class in Nkrumah in a class struggle in Africa, in a book called Class Struggle in Africa, talked about how they're utilizing certain people to do that. So, but we got to find the progressive elements in the progressive mind, just like when we talk about gang and all. We have to find the progressive elements and bring them into organization, bring them into the movement, bring them into the structure of our movement, so that we can begin to handle, the people that's in that class, because this is what happened. Obama was a part of, the black petty bourgeoisie, came out of Harvard or Yale or wherever he came out of. So, and understanding that and looking at that, we're going to have to begin to challenge our people to begin to turn their backs on these people. Because we got 40 so-called representatives in the United States House of Representatives. You know, that's like 10% of so-called Congress. And we can't even get any of those to come together to do whatever they're supposed to do for the people. So now that's why we said all remedies have been exhausted, because we have put people in positions, you see what I'm saying, that are supposed to be able to do that. So we're not going to do anything in terms of talking about the United States government. What we have to do, what the new thing has to happen, is people have to understand that we can create the new situation, the new African situation. And once we get the elements, all the elements to do that, we'll be able to handle whoever is going to be a traitor or anything like that, because we have laid down the principles, of the Republic of New Africa. We've laid down. And so as we study those principles that were laid out in 1968, and we got a black what they call that, Declaration of Independence. We follow that. We follow that black, Umoja, And so consequently, once we do that, we involve people into understanding that we do have a structure, and the structure is set up. Is put the structure in motion so that we'll be able to, and we understand politics first, but we also need support for the politics. And so therefore, that's why I was saying, when we talk about these organizations, what they call themselves, and there's a black name, I can't think of it right now. But anyway, whenever we find progressive elements that got resources, we got to convince those elements that they got to come with those resources and put them to the Republic of New Afrika. And once we do that, we'll be able to solve a lot of economic problems, that are keeping us from being able to bring our people in, in the governance. And everywhere we are, we should be pushing for us to understand the principle of the 5 states and why we have the 5 states. And ultimately, we may come to have more than 5 states, But the 5 states are important because these were states that we were a majority of the population, during after the Civil War and the so-called Reconstruction era and all that, and our rights were they were given to us, well, taken away from us just as fast as they gave them to us, And so this is where we have to really understand how to move on that level, and then we're not talking about the military structure, but we got to have, like in any nation, we have an army, we have military, and all that. That's going to protect us, when we make our efforts to do what we need to be doing. And this is important to understand that structure was set up in 1968.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to make sure that we bring in our social media audience. I'm getting an echo of background. Okay. All right. So yeah, I want to make sure that we bring our social media audience into the conversation. I see Comrade Atiba. He's been out there getting the word out and letting everybody know what we doing. He want to welcome everybody back. He's happy that y'all back, Comrade. He said, glad to have you, Comrade brothers, back. Comrade Brother Prophet has been doing a terrible job. Just kidding, man. Be like, man, what you talking about, bro? No, I've been cutting up in here. Y'all already know they want to give me a spinoff show. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, but yeah, it is great to have y'all brothers back. I've been doing my best, y'all, trying to hold it down. I see so Andrea, you in the house. How you doing? How are you doing? Melly Queen is always out there doing it, sharing the word. Got an opportunity to catch it. Well, I wasn't able to call in yesterday, but I got an opportunity to catch your show. Great show as always. She's on the Truth and Power Corner with Melly Queen every Friday at 5:00. She's on the Blog Talk station. So she does her thing. So thank you for your service. And she wants us to know that. Thank y'all for tuning in to the New African Broadcast Association. We appreciate all support to build this platform for our people. Please donate to $NABA Radio. That is $ capital NABA small RADIO. Free the land. Thank you for that public service announcement. That's Cash App. It is. It is. Who else? Who else on here? I see Queen Susan Rogers in here. Say she enjoy listening to us all the time. Yes, we appreciate you tuning in to that. And thank everybody for sharing that. And hold on, who's that sister? I see. I just skipped her over. I think her name was Nasa Jones. Nasa Jones. Is that Tiva's little sister or big sister? I'm not sure. I think that's who that is. Yeah, Nasa Jones. She said, "Free the land." So yeah, thank you for tuning in. And yeah, we're gonna have a good time. Earlier, you talked about the like a Griot Awards show, in which you mentioned. Hold on, I got another comment. Yeah. Yeah, Tiva said that's his little sister. That's what's up. That's what's up. But yeah, you mentioned a Griot award show where it's a guy by the name of Norman Lear received a reward. Um, and he's the creator of a lot of black shows in the 70s that we all grew up with, such as Good Times, the Jeffersons. He also did like All in the Family and a lot of shows like that. And go well, I'll take it over you. You can explain to us about
what award. The black people gave them an award.
Oh, what did I say? A reward or something? What did I say?
Reward.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, the Griot Award is created by what I say, Aldo Ray. Aldo, what's his name? I can't think. He's a billionaire. But anyway, the guy that owns the Weather Channel.
Oh,
Brian Alden.
His name. He used to be a what is his name? Anyway, no.
Byron Allen.
Byron Allen. Yeah, Byron Allen. And so consequently, like that it was a show that gave awards to a whole range of people, cultural and politically, and musically. And but the only award that went to a white person was to Norman Lear. Norman Lear is basically the one that created Good Times and the Jeffersons and other All in the Family and different programs. But Tyler Perry gave him went to give him the award because he didn't make it to the show. He turned 100 years old a couple of months ago. That's how.
So he was the only one that got rich off of these black shows.
Right, but those particular shows, yeah, of course. And but so Tyler Perry, also got an award. Various other people got an award. These billionaires. But the point is that like when the Black Panther Party came up to Norman Lear about Good Times, they said, "Well, you're showing somebody that that's a garbage man," or something like that. So Norman Lear turned around and created the Jeffersons. Now, even when you look at at that time, in the 70s, when I was looking at the Jeffersons, I never hardly looked at the Jeffersons. I didn't like the Jeffersons because of the class situation, how they created a class, condition of rich black folks, and how they got rich as a result of, their hard work and all that in America and all that kind of stuff. So, and he was a cleaner, right? Yeah. Had a cleaning laundry industry. And so even when you deal with that, that's like a backhand slap when it comes down to it, because it does not answer the question of what is black life is, and what does it consist of, what is the culture. And so and you were talking about earlier how how the black actors in Good Times fought for having a presentable program that showed positive, a positive light in terms of, but it was actually turned around when they began to make JJ, the top character, it's dynamite, and so they protested against that, and ultimately the actor that played James, what was his name, John Amos, he finally left, but he participated in the Roots program, but they used that as an excuse to not let him come back in if he decided to come back in. They killed them on the program. But I want to say that these programs, even though a griot, I love that word griot. It deals with African, like an African storyteller, his story, and all that. And that's a good concept, and it was a good show in terms of the people that most of the people that they selected. But what I hated was that they're still trying to build America. But I understand that because like if you made $1 billion and you own a radio television station, and all that, you think that you think you have made it, but they were protesting the fact that 97% of all investment go to white men. Out of 82 million investments, I think it took 82 billion in investment capital. Only 1 billion goes to women and so-called minorities. And I object to the whole thing about it because they're trying to include, thinking that white women are going to be separated from, white men, in terms of, because this is a line that's been pushed by a lot of people when they try to get money. Well, we're going to get women and, and minorities the money, and women usually be white women, and white women get, the ones that are getting in investments, So consequently, when we look at these programs, we have to look at it with a very good critical eye, because now we want to correct, because we want to see these people something they want to do something for black people and all that, but they need to come together with those resources to the Republic of New Afrika, to the provisional government. In other words, if you're a billionaire, and one of the billionaires that they gave an award to, he gave he took care of about $500 million of debt, student debt, for the black colleges, he paid their debt. That's a billionaire. I can't think of his name. He was in real estate. So, but what I'm saying is, it shows you that money that you're talking, that wealth that we're talking about, in terms of who to give it to. Give it to the nation. I'm just saying. So consequently, what is his name? Tyler Perry. He did 22 movies and all of it. He's a billionaire now. See what I'm saying? So we could call on these billionaires, this program, to help us, fund our government. Because they do have that loose change that they're giving to somebody else, and not. And people like Oprah Winfrey that giving white folks money and stuff like that. Let's take this money and give it to your people, to your in the provisional government of. And what I'm talking about, brother, Kakai, he's always talking about economics. So the economics is there.
So I want to make sure that I'm clear about what you're saying, because in this award show, which was created by a billionaire, which acknowledged a lot of billionaires within America, although the masses of our people are not necessarily doing great economically and financially. And as far as term of ownership of America, we're doing terrible. We're doing worse than we did, when we came out of the period of enslavement. But there are, however, some individuals who have done quite well under this system, so ultimately, if collectively we don't suffer from the colonized mindset, then we could potentially fund our own liberation. And we should be funding our own liberation, because we have the resources, the manpower, and the individuals who have the resources to do so. But in order to do that, we have to have the correct mindset. What we're missing is the mindset. So it ultimately goes back to a program we had about on the New African Perspective, when we said, what nation are you building? There we have an example of billionaires and billionaires who take their resources, their money, their talents, to build up the American empire, which is constantly destroying us, is attacking us, exploiting us, and meeting us with all types of brutality. So what we're trying to say is, what we're trying to do is we're trying to collectively pull all of our resources together so we can utilize those billionaires and use those resources in order to create the type of things that are actually going to benefit us collectively instead of benefiting the colonizer. Am I correct by saying that? Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about that Norman Lear character because, as a matter of fact, I just looked at a mini documentary on the show Good Time, and it was talking about, as you said, how Esther Rowe, that's the woman who played Florida on Good Times. She's basically responsible for all the positive elements in the show because initially that show was based on a lot of coonery. They had no black father in it. She's the one that said, no, we're not going to create a show about a black family that does not have a black man at the head of the household. That's why you have an example of a strong black father, even though he didn't have much education and the jobs that he had were not, good jobs. He was like a garbage man. And at one time he worked at a car wash, but and she insisted that the Thelma character, the woman, was not sexualized. And I remember growing up, I grew up, teenager looking at Good Times and Sanford and Son and all of these shows, and I noticed I never looked at Thelma as, dang, she fine or anything. Like, I never looked at her as a sexual object. Now, me as a grown man, I look back and I was like, damn, Thelma was one of the finest women on TV, period. But I never looked at her that way because in the show, it did not portray her that way. It did not present her like that, even though she's one of the most beautiful, and all of these things were because of the advocacy of Esther Rowe. And it was like a real battle. And ultimately, I remember an episode. Y'all remember this. Y'all remember the episode when JJ had painted a black Jesus and they put the black Jesus on the wall. And Michael, which was another character that I liked, because he was militant and he wanted to be a Supreme Court justice, very smart, very, he basically said, well, no, this is a more accurate, depiction of Jesus based historically, if Jesus was, a real person. But anyway, that's another story. And when they put this, this black Jesus up, things started going way up for him. I remember I just loved that show. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And then at the end, they took the damn picture down. And I'm like, that was one of the first times I looked at that show and I was like, maybe this show is not really, designed to really benefit us. You know what I'm saying? And another show that he created, Good Times. Not Good Times, yeah. The Jeffersons. I remember when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. And on that episode, it dealt with it. And, America was on fire and people were rioting and burning down the cities. And the son, his name was Lionel. He was ready to go out to the streets and they was like saying, no, the militants are wrong. You can't. And I was looking at that and I was like, what the hell you mean the militants are wrong? They just killed the damn peacemaker. The dude who's talking about turn the other cheek. The dude talking about hold hands with black boys and white boys and being in unity and integrating toilets and all of these type of things. And y'all talking about don't cut the hell up when they do something like that. Like, damn, if you ain't gonna cut up then, when the hell you gonna do it? And I realized, I was like, okay, it's something big. And that's my first, we talk a lot about Hollywood today, about the images that they put before us and the messages and how they tell us, they pacify the revolutionary energy within us by creating images and messages that tell us otherwise. I just looked at the Black Panther movement and they had, the Chicano nation fighting the African nation. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, I was like, in about 25 years, there's going to be a minority of white people in America. You're going to have a majority Chicano and a majority of African people. And in this movie, they're basically trying to tell us that we're enemies. Well, I'm like, if we united, then they ass in trouble, you know. So I'm looking at these messages and I'm like saying this is going a long way. And as you see earlier, um, Norman Lear, he was a Zionist Jewish person, you know, which goes along with that same narrative about who runs Hollywood and how they have produced material that has been detrimental to our people for a very, very long time. You know, I'll yield on that.
Yeah. So, so when we deal with Norman, okay, even if that didn't say kind of Jew in America, Jew became white, you know, late in the late 40s, you know, after the so-called Holocaust and all that. But when you talk about that, they have been for a long time given the franchise for African people. In other words, our poets and our artists and all of them have been, you know, hired by, you know, by or supported by people that we call Jews, you know, and that's why we thought that they were like our friends, you know, because the whole thing, every scenario that they talk to us about, the ghetto, they talk about the what they call that, the diaspora and all those things we got from basically there were like Jewish settlements and Jewish things that happened, and so we identify because we identify with the Bible, with the so-called Jews that were being that Moses had, you know, Moses led out of Egypt and all that kind of stuff. But this is the point when we talk about, like he just described the thing about they were showing the assassination of King, you know, in that was the first episode. And so what is the solution that was given? Well, that's how Jefferson got to be coming on up. You know, I think we got to be a rich, you know, black man moved into the white, you know, building, big white building, because his wife was supposed to have been a maid or something, you know. And so, but this is a salute. In other words, we don't have to become revolutionary. We're gonna allow some people to rise up, and that's the essence of the whole thing of Jefferson. You know, but that was the first episode. You know, they introduced the Jefferson to the community to make them us view it alongside good times. You know, and so yeah, it's interesting that we should begin to understand that. So that these people control. So therefore, at the Griot Award, they gave you know, Norman for being the first person to produce black, you know, series and stuff on, you know, on television, you know. And so and like I said, they had Tyler Perry, you know, who is a billionaire now too, to go, you know, humble himself to go, you know, talk about how he appreciated Norman Lear, you know, and it inspired him to, you know, become the person to write, to do movies and stuff like that, you know. So
That that actually make a lot of sense. Because like basically what you described is, you know, you had Good Time, which dealt with the poverty, people who are living in poverty, those people who would actually um, move into the revolutionary class, those people who would join the Panthers because they are fed up with the system. But their answer to that was said, nah, you know, you're going to move up. Don't move to the revolution. Move up to, you know, a middle class or to the petty bourgeoisie, you know, and then you can integrate. You can move next to a neighbor with a white husband and a black wife, and you can join, gang the true American dream. Um, yeah, that's interesting. It's really what we're describing is a counter-revolutionary tactic done by the system, which basically just another way in which we have been attacked by this system, because we attack, you know, a lot of times we look at the police and the brutality as being the attack. That's not the only way. We attack on all fronts, even from the television programs we grow up in love. You know, we've been attacked by them. So yeah, that's interesting, and he's celebrated for that. Even though, as Melly Queen pointed out, Norman Lear actually stole that idea from a black writer. That's a information that I was looking at recently. He stole that idea from a black writer.
Michael, I can't think of the last name. came up with that, the idea of the good time.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, I can't think of his last name, but
He was given credit, but not credit, you know. Yeah.
He didn't get paid.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good stuff. Good stuff. So hold on, let me try to get this right. Yeah, that's an interesting program. But I mean, ultimately, it boils down to control, you know, because we've been complaining about not having the proper representation of ourselves. And it was interesting that Tyler Perry is the individual who accepted the award on his behalf, because Tyler Perry is infamous for producing shows that um, that rely heavily on negative stereotypes of black people, especially black men. And I know he gets a lot of criticism because he always comes up and dressing in a dress in this whole Medill character, I guess a dressing character. And it's like really a lot of pushback in the black community of having so many strong black men characters seem like they have to dress up in a dress at some point in their career before they make it big. Which is extremely problematic because it appears that manhood and black men in general are attacked in the media. We understand war tactics. You attack the head, the body can't survive. One of the first things you do is you take out the leadership. And historically, black men were supposed to be the providers and the warriors and the guys of the community. And so the black man has always been under attack since the beginning of chattel slavery.
Tyler Perry went to Norman Lear's house.
Oh, he went to his house.
They showed the, you know, the video of him and Norman. You know, he was gave him the statue or whatever award that they had, you know, at his house. And then later on, you know, when they had the program, you know, Tyler Perry got an award too for producing those films that he produced. You know, he got up and talked about his mother and all that. My deal was a representative of his mother and whatever, grandmother, whatever, you know. And so like I said, these stereotypes, you know, have been, you know, accepted within the context of the so-called American audience, you know. Like I said, he's become, you know, a billionaire as a result, you know, of that.
I mean, you're correct, because a lot of the entertainment from the television programs, the movie programs, from the music that we hear, that helps to create our culture, which helps to shape our behavior. Your culture kind of tells you how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to respond to oppression, how you to respond to your elders, all of these things. And when you look at the type of things that are fed to us, they're all counter-revolutionary. They're all, you know, so many of them are teach us to be buffoon, teach us to be self-destructive, teach us to do things that are detrimental to our own people in our own struggle. One thing that has been talked about a lot with the whole Kanye West and Kyrie situation, that it's been Kanye especially talked about how these Jewish people in the music industry really control the music industry, and they promote the type of music that is destructive. They promote the type of music that promotes the violence of our people. And we're always condemned by, you know, saying we're anti-Semitic and and they cry, you know, Holocaust. But these individuals are still actively participating in the African Holocaust. The music industry is a part of the African Holocaust. It's not something separate. You know what I'm saying? This is a continuation all the way, probably before the creation of chattel slavery in America up until today. All of it's like one straight line. And this is just another war tactic that we are falling victim to. And it's one of the most effective war tactics because it is implemented by people who look like us. You know, but make no mistake, the rap industry, the music industry right now is a powerful tool of white supremacy, and it's something that we gotta address and we gotta deal with. And we're not the ones that are making the billions out of it. Matter of fact, I think I have a clip of exactly what Kanye was talking about, because it was a interview with this Jewish record company exec with the Breakfast Club, and he was talking about the artists that he signed and these type of things and the drugs and how they promote things, and they called him out on it, and it was an interesting thing, and if I can find it, it's quite interesting. Here it is. I'll check it out.
Really rough, particularly on women, but I think it helped change the course of the crack epidemic. I don't know what's this opioid thing, man.
But being a crackhead wasn't cool back then. Being a crackhead wasn't cool. Now they seem like they're making it cool to be drinking lean and syrup, and
it's the most dangerous. It's the most dangerous thing that's facing our society.
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical, though. You're saying
it's opportunistic.
Yeah.
I got people to feed. I got a business to run.
You're gonna make Dame Dash take this clip and call you a culture vulture.
Who's Dame Dash? You brought him up. I don't even know him. So you bring his name up. I don't even know him. So
y'all made a lot of money together.
Made a lot of money.
Come on, Leo. Don't do that to him.
I don't know him. I really don't. So, I don't know what to tell you. I won't.
Yeah, that was I don't know if you were able to see that, hear all of that clip. But yeah, basically, that was a Jewish record exec who they was talking about how bad the drug epidemic is and how that's the number one problem that's facing us and how devastating it is and all of those type of things. And then so they just asked him and say, well, why you promote artists like that? And he was just like a cat. Took his tongue. He was like, well, I got people to feed. That's probably a billionaire talking about, I got people to feed. That's why I want to promote music that is devastating to the people. You want to promote an artist that brags about being drug addicts. And that's kind of where the state of music is right now. That's why I said the music that we listen to, the music that we're listening to is a tool of white supremacy. It is a tool of white supremacy. So, let's be clear about it. One thing that we have to do, we have to take control and we have to take responsibility. One thing we have to stop supporting music that glorifies and celebrate the murder of Black people in any form. We just have to stop accepting. One thing, a lot of people get mad about Jewish people because they viciously attack anybody who questions them. But I mean, we could learn about how we should attack people who attack us, because we let things go. We should basically, anything that is detrimental to our community, we should come down on it with an iron fist, and say, no, we're not going to allow it, or not for 1 second. That's just my idea, my thing, and everything, whether it comes from an internal enemy or an external enemy. So we just got to have a no nonsense policy about that, and we have to viciously attack that, point blank, period. Comrade, you've been quiet over there.
Yeah, well, entertainment. It goes back to in history. If you want to talk about the squire, entertainers. And any group of people that are oppressed, they allow the entertainers and athletes to excel to a certain degree to represent hopes and dreams and aspirations that can be met if you maintain yourself within the confounds of the paradigms in the system. As long as you accept their system, you're going to have entertainers and athletes that are going to make enough money to live comfortably. They won't be able to make generational wealth, but they'll be able to live comfortably and allow the immediate families to benefit from that comfort. So when it comes down to entertainment, I really don't see entertainers as being a part of the struggle, because they're so caught up in being a part of this system or a part of the United States. Um, in terms of us in particular, the United States, and that's where we fall short. We have a lot of our people that are in a position that can help us, but they would rather be more part of the United States and the white supremacists that run it than to be a part of the liberation of our people and changing the conditions of our people, because they're that far caught up in the system. And there's other science that goes along. In the music, we know that vibrations um, creates a euphoria to persuade people to do certain things. They've had think tanks. I'm talking about the Europeans and their descendants. They've had think tanks. They've created institutions to study the effects of vibrations on the mind, to create that, to control the actions of the people. I mentioned some months ago that our listening audience can go into um, Google it, Tavistock Institute, and look up the research that they've done and how they understand the frequencies, the vibration frequencies in the FM radios affect you, um, uh, and how they have, in turn, from this research, have controlled all the FM radios. Um, and being one of those who do a lot of research first before I speak, um, you can actually find this information. You can Google it, and you'll find that European countries are now banning FM radio from their countries. If you look at Belgium, Luxembourg, a number of different European countries have banned FM radio because of the mind control um, potential that those radio waves have. So when we start talking about entertainment, first and foremost, I'm disappointed in my people who are entertainers and athletes, because uh, they feel more connected with being a part of a system that's against us than being a part of a movement like the New African Independence Movement that strives for our liberation and freedom. They would be Johnny come latelys for the most part. You have a few that stand out, and when they stand out, they end up standing alone. Um, not Kyrie, Kyrie Irving really didn't do anything uh, important as far as speaking the truth and saying the truth, and being quoted as speaking about the truth and the liberation of our people. He just put a post of some information on his whatever page, and he got um, chewed up and spit out. But for the most part, when any of our athletes or entertainers speak out, they're isolated. They're bombarded with misinformation in the media, so that the people can't help them, even the ones that want to help them. And you end up losing that resource from giving our nation and our struggle, the New African Liberation Movement, any resources, finances to help out, because those folks, uh, Kyrie and them, they're going to have to find a way to get back what they've already lost. And that's because we're in a war, and we've been at war for a long period of time, and nobody really wants to recognize that we're at war. And if we're going to be serious and for real about having our own independent sovereign nation, uh, we got to be ready and prepared to shed blood, because it's going to be off with the heads if you're talking, if we're trying to talk about having our own land and independence. We're not going to be able to negotiate it. Uh, and we're not going to be able to just get it turned over to us. We're going to have to fight to take it back, and they're going to fight to keep it, although they stole the land in the first place. But it looked like Grandmaster Teacher. I've been quiet because I've been listening. Uh, I'm more a part of solving some of the injustices in this country. And in order to do that, we have to change. It's going to be unorthodox. And we have to change the culture of our people to believe that the unorthodox actions that are needed to that we need to take are actions that are true um, and real that leads to our liberation. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be it's going to be a steep hill to climb and a hard battle. But we're going to keep, I'm going to keep, and we're going to keep pushing because we will win. We will win. But I seen Grandmaster Teacher over there. He looked like he had a comment to say.
Okay, so we're looking at the individual. We can't if we're looking at individuals, we'll never be able to organize. We have to create groups of people, and the groups of people have to come together. Sometimes we got to do stuff. We don't do stuff publicly. We have to do it stuff, below the line. In other words, where people are not able to see. But if you move to get people into organization, and knowing that they will be protected, within that organizational structure, then you will see more people being able to support, the movements publicly or whatever we want to do. And this is even when we deal with the athletes in the past or the entertainers in the past, they became a part of a movement. Some of us didn't agree with that movement, which was the civil rights movement, but as a group, they were very effective in creating people like Martin Luther King and those kind of people like that. That because they gave their support, they directly participated in the activity that those people were involved in. And this is what we have to do.
Now you keep on.
Okay, so this is what we have to do.
Oh, that's your phone?
Yeah, I think it's my phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me turn it off.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. We got to be in an organization.
Right. Yeah, and so consequently, this is what I'm saying. Now, the other thing is, if we have organization, we'll impose, a tax on certain people, people that and they don't have to come out publicly,
Right.
So what I'm saying, there's all kinds of methods of us trying to be able to get support, financial or whatever, from those elements, that are, all right. That's all right.
No, but
Yeah.
you have a very good point with it. Comrade got important business he got to attend. It's live, y'all. Yeah, you important brother, man. People have to talk to you. But yeah, but no, it's something important that you said about joining organization, because a lot of times, especially in the age of social media, we like to have these individual emotional protests. Like might be a movie come out and they don't like maybe the subject matter of the movie. They think it's exploitive in whatever ways and say, well, I'm not gonna go to it or anything like that. And that's kind of the thing, and they make a big fuss about it. And I said, something like, it's Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving represent the murder and exploitation of in millions and millions of indigenous people. And I'm not going to do anything. Or the 4th of July, or whatever it is. And we have these individual protests. And I said, you know what? I don't no longer really care about these individual protests because they don't really do anything. It just feeds your little personal ego and your personal emotion. Like if you want to do something, let's collectively get together and say, okay, we have a goal that we're trying to accomplish. So we're going to take this action collectively. and we're going to work forward of accomplishing a specific goal instead of just doing something to make you feel good for a second and then criticizing somebody because they didn't participate in something they weren't organized. So I think we should get back into the habit of organizing. If you say you see something wrong that you don't like, that don't just sit and complain about it. Organize around it, because organization is the key. That's the only way we really gonna get things together. Regardless of how many posts you make, how many mad comments you have about the situation, how many good points you make about it. It ain't really going to change anything until we get together collectively and make a collective effort and put forth some collective action in order to bring about some real results, reach real goals, concrete goals and objective, not just a feel good moment so you can release some stress and tension that's been built up about the subject. So I think that was a real important comment that you made about it. What's up, Comrade? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we've been on for about an hour 20, been talking and Comrade like saying, man, we gotta go. We got things to do. Hey, these brothers got more, a life. I don't really have a life. My life is talking to the people. But in closing, Master Teacher, what you wanna say?
We we must always know that the people ultimately, once we were able to communicate our ideas and our thoughts to the point of understanding liberation, our people ultimately will come. That's why we still talk about educating the uneducated and re-educating the miseducated, because it's a common lifetime effort. And in terms of the movement, liberation movement, we have to begin not to lose sight of it, that we got to continually do that. It's a continual thing, a continual process. And if we understand that, then we will never be disappointed by the actions of individuals.
Definitely. Comrade, you got closing comments?
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
we can,
As a people,
we can
believe
that
that these changes
are
are coming, but we're going to have to do something to make sure that the forces that contribute to us going in a positive direction are the forces that we support. Being involved in collective response to the actions that are being dealt to us, being involved in collectively in organizations to achieve certain goals towards liberation can be met, but we have to believe that we will win. And if you understand that any philosophy that is true will stand the test of time, then you'll stand firm in the liberation of our people, because that will stand the test of time and that will be the goal that will be met when we win the war.
So I guess I'll close with something simple. No need to get too complicated because y'all basically broke it down. And basically everything that I'm hearing is we got work to do, comrades. We got work to do. It's cool that we get on these programs and talk, and I love the interaction between the people. And thank you for joining and supporting us. You know what I'm saying? But this is just like one stage, the communication stage, the propaganda stage, to get the word out stage. But the communication, all the talking has to ultimately lead to action. We got to do, y'all. We got to get out there. We got to create these programs. We have to bring into existence these institutions. We have to create our own schools, our own banks, all of these things that are at the hands of the European power structure are exploiting us and causing us great harm. If we know these things, and we gotta cut their lifeline out, and we have to produce our own. So with that, thank y'all for joining us. Join us again tomorrow with the New African Perspective. Tuesday, Foundation of the Nation. Thursday, Conversation Between Comrades. Friday, Queen Melly Queen, the Truth and Power Corner, and back again Sunday with the Voices of New Afrika on Prophecy for my comrade Kakayi and Elder Fadali. We gonna leave y'all with Free the Land, Free the Land, Free the Land by any and all means necessary. I am, I will.
If you could see what
we always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. Free in the land.